Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Hands-on SAP Dev. My goodness me, have I had too much coffee already? I don't know. Welcome to Hands-on SAP Dev. This time with me, Q Macro. Of course, I'm saying this time with me, Q Macro, because I'm really enjoying our new home for Hands-on SAP Dev, which is the SAP Devs channel. So welcome and thank you for joining. Good morning, Tim. Good morning, Tim. I quite like not having to remember the episode number because, of course, now we're all sharing and we've all converged into Hands-on SAP Dev together on the SAP Developers YouTube channel. Tom and Max and Kevin and other people in our team. We're all going to be, publishing hands-on stuff in this particular show. Let's call it a show. I don't have to remember episode numbers because episode numbers don't make any sense anymore in that sort of context. So welcome Tapio, welcome Manuel, welcome Jodel, Shahid, welcome, and hello to you as well. Thank you very much for joining. I'm very excited in many ways. Hey Asaf, I missed you, DJ. I missed you too, Asaf. Good morning, Mark. Good morning to Mark all the way in North Germany. I've got my coffee, which is a little bit too hot at the moment. I've also got a biscuit, because remember last time I had a biscuit. I didn't have a biscuit, and I started choking on my coffee. But it's one of these Italian biscuits again. So if I turn Italian and start writing things with like E's on the end, again, that's the reason. Christian, top of the morning to you too, sir. Top of the morning, Samuel. Good morning as well. Fantastic. Great to have you. Great to have you all on board. So let me just switch to the main scene because I wanted to make sure, I'm pretty sure everybody is already aware of the fact that obviously I'm broadcasting this live stream from the new home, the SAP Developers channel. If you're not already aware of that, subscribe to that. It's the best way to get reminders of upcoming events and everything. So, obviously, my colleagues do live streams as well. So check that out. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And also, please share the message. Please share the love and get other folks in your companies, in your teams to subscribe as well. That would be awesome. So what have I got news-wise? I think just one thing today, because I want to spend most of the time this morning starting to dig into the subject of the day, which is, diving into messaging. We'll talk about what messaging really is in a second. Let me just move on. I think you may also have already seen this from our colleague Anna, but check it out. We've had 2 community coding challenges already. The first one was the inaugural one was from Tom and Rich. And good morning, Fuad. Good morning, Fuad. Nice to see you again. The first one was from Tom and Rich. It was an ABAP one. The second one I was involved with. It was a JavaScript one, obviously. We have the third one, SAP Community Coding Challenge number 3. There's a little video there you can watch. Also with our, super branding. Maybe this is a temporary brand. I quite like this sort of branding. Let me know what you think, actually. Really simple, nice, nice SAP gold and everything. Been playing around with some more sort of backdrops and everything as well. So let us know what you think. So this one is with Java. Check this out. Did I post it? Yeah, I posted a link already. And it's a really interesting one. I mean, I'd never really thought, I'm not really an emoji person, or never have been an emoji person. I can't understand what some of the emojis mean, to be honest. Especially when I see them in Twitter, for example. I have to sort of, copy paste them into Google and do a search for them so that A, bigger, and B, I understand what they are. I've been starting to use some emojis like the muscle emoji or the hand emoji. I can work those things out. Maybe we'll use one of those today, actually. But anyway, yeah, check that out. Really, really interesting coding challenge. Yeah. By the way, actually, it does remind me, Code Wars. If you've not already checked out Code Wars, nothing to do with the coding challenge per se, but it's a really nice way of, practicing. If you've got a spare 5 minutes or you want to take a break from what you're doing, you go to Code Wars, you do a little kata, a little sort of exercise. There's different levels of katas, difficulty levels. It's really, really interesting. So I've put that on put this little badge you can have, and just to encourage me to do more, because I'm just a beginner, I've put a little badge there showing what my ranking is, a 6Q, and that's the number of points I've got. I don't know what that means really. But anyway, also, by the way, check that out. That's like, my sort of meta homepage with all the different links and all the latest episodes that I do on the new SAP Devs hosted hands-on SAP Dev. Also, latest blog posts on SAP Community from me, and on my own blog, and on my YouTube channel, and my other blog on Language Ramblings and so on. So there's all sorts of things there. Anyway, so how are we all doing? Are we all ready for looking at messaging? Let me, in fact, just go first of all to the which one shall we have? I'll just go to any random thing here. Well, that was too random. Let me go to here and go straight to the top link. Okay, let me just close that. Comments there. I'm sending them feedback on the documentation, which is awesome to be able to do that. So yeah, enterprise messaging. I think most of us may have an idea of what that's all about, but in the context of SAP Cloud Platform and in the context of what the Cloud Platform is, predominantly there to help us with as developers and architects and everything, to extend functionality, business functionality of SAP systems and non-SAP systems. Enterprise messaging is all about asynchronous, centralized, managed messaging and eventing. Think event bus, think publish, subscribe. Okay, I'm not going to go through the details of what that is, but really, really important. In fact, let me just share the main link there. This is like the main page with all the different bits and pieces in the table of contents here. But one of the really interesting pages here is the concepts page, which is, I'm sure you can find it yourself, so I don't need to bombard you with URLs there. And there's some really nice diagrams where we can sort of get a rough idea of what concepts are contained in messaging generally, and what concepts are supported by the enterprise messaging service in particular on SAP Cloud Platform. And the thing is, the name of this episode, the name of this particular episode of Hands on SAP Dev says part 1, because unless you say no DJ, no, don't do that, but unless I hear to the contrary, I think it'd be really cool to sort of explore this over a series of episodes, to sort of dig in and go step by step, because I'm fairly new to this as well, so this is the whole point. Let's learn together. Christian, we use SEM to decouple systems and integration processes. I really like it. Yes, thank you, Christian. That's a really, I'm glad you say that, and thank you for sort of giving that sort of positive feedback there. From a general concept, one of the fundamental things that I pick up on straight away is this whole thing is about asynchronicity. A lot of us are embracing asynchronicity as we're working from home more, and we're communicating with our colleagues and partners and whoever, partners as in business partners, asynchronously, whether that's with Slack or email or Teams or whatever. Things, well, all right, here's a generalization, but I'm going to say it anyway. Things work better when they're asynchronous, in many ways, not always, but many ways. One of those things that works better when it's asynchronous is messaging. So one of the messaging, asynchronous messaging, and some of the concepts here have been around for a very long time. This is nothing new. So, for example, if we have a look, I was involved, for example, back in 2003, building an extension protocol for Jabber or XMPP, which is the protocol that powers now things like WhatsApp and so on, messaging and presence protocol. That's what MPP stands for, Extensible Messaging Protocol. So I wrote a specification with my erstwhile friend and colleague Piers, a pub sub proposal, and that was sort of subsumed into what we know now within XMPP and PubSub, which is used all around the world, which is the JEP60, Publish Subscribe. Okay, so Publish Subscribe's been around for a long time. And there's another concept that's been around for a long time as well, which we'll come to, which is the concept of a webhook, which is basically an HTTP endpoint that can be pinged, in terms of here's an event, here's a little bit of a payload, here's an event. So webhooks come into this whole thing as well. Pedro, hello there, and Mahesh, good morning to you, Mahesh. Nice to see you again. So yeah, Jeff Lindsay, I got a very, very, very loose connection. I can't remember how to Jeff Lindsay, but Jeff Lindsay was the person who sort of coined the term webhook back in 2007. Hopefully we'll get around to it. If I stop rambling, we're going to be talking about webhooks today as well, which is really cool. Let's get rid of that as well. So have a look at some of the concepts here. I mean, basically, we've got here the concept of queue. This is a really nice document. This particular page introduces us to some of the concepts. So we've got the concept of a queue. Okay, so you've got an application over here. We can send a message to a queue, and then so there's the producer of the message. It goes into a queue, and then it can be eventually consumed by it, i.e., the queue retains the message until the receiving application consumes it. Okay, and there's a one-to-one relationship basically between an app, this app B here, and a queue. Okay, so that's one of the basic concepts. I mean, there's a lot of concepts here. We're not going to get into all of them, but I want to look at some of the concepts and then dig in to play around with some things as well. So when we think of publish subscribe, which is a well-known concept, I think something publishes something to a topic, and there are other things that have registered their interest in that topic, saying, oh, please ping me, please kick me when a message appears, a new message is appearing on this topic here. And so there's a concept of topics in enterprise messaging as well. Okay, now the concept of topics purely with nothing else basically means that you can have an app producing a message for a certain topic, and then any apps subscribed to that topic will receive those messages. However, that's almost like an immediate effect. Okay, and those apps, as it says here, those apps need to be active when a message hits the topic. Okay, so that's not quite what we know and understand in general with publish subscribe. It's a very useful concept. But if we move down to what in enterprise messaging is called queue subscriptions, the diagram looks a little bit more complicated, but actually the idea is beautiful and simple. Basically, you can combine the concept of queues with the concept of topics to basically end up with publish subscribe. So it's a beautiful set of low-level building blocks. So an app can publish a message to a topic, okay, but then you can connect a queue to that topic so that the consumption of the incoming messages by a consumer, app B for example, doesn't have to be immediate. The app B can then connect to the queue and start consuming whenever they're ready. Okay, so that's great. So that's enough theory. This is hands-on SAP Dev, isn't it? So I thought what would be really interesting to do is to try and put together the simplest thing that could possibly work. There's a wealth of stuff that's available in enterprise messaging right now, and things will be changing in the future as well. But the fundamental concepts and the APIs, are going to be remaining the same. So let's play around with those, okay, and just have a bit of a discovery, a journey of discovery, and see if we can. What I'm going to do is see if we can set up an enterprise messaging service instance. We'll create a queue. Okay, we won't do a topic, but we'll create a queue. We'll do this, right? We'll create a queue. Start simple. And then we'll send some messages to that queue, and then we'll sort of drain the messages from the queue by setting up an app to receive those messages. And we'll use a webhook for that. That's a really, really simple way of being a consumer. Okay, there's many concepts, so let's just play with a few of them in this particular episode. So, are we okay? Let me know in the chat how you're feeling, what your thoughts. Christian, thank you for that. Let me know, like Christian, what you think of messaging. Have you used it before? Is this something you can see being useful in your work? I mean, I can't see why it wouldn't be useful because it's such a fundamentally important concept, the idea of asynchronous messaging. So let me, anything else I wanted to show there? Some REST APIs here. Yeah, there's an initial setup, which is also described here, right? Initial setup, and initial setup deprecated light service plan. Actually, there's an important thing to note about the plans. There are changes afoot with enterprise messaging, the service on SAP Cloud Platform, but changes that we don't really have to concern ourselves with for this episode or even subsequent episodes while we're exploring, because we're going to be exploring at the fundamental level, at the hardcore level, and so it's all good. But this thing here, just to be completely upfront, there was a service plan. Remember, in Cloud Platform and the multi-cloud environment, you have services, and you can create service instances, for example, of those services, for a given service plan. I'm sure we're all familiar with that, of course. There was a light plan. I wasn't really aware of the fact there was a light plan. There was a light plan that we could use. That's deprecated now. But instead, that light, you can sort of see it at the light plan as the dev plan now. And that's a plan that all of us here as wily developers on trial accounts have access to. So I'm going to go into my trial account. I sort of deleted and reset up my trial account the other day, which is a nice easy way to blast everything away. So this is my real trial account, DJ, there we go, there. And in fact, yeah, it was 2 days ago, 28 days left. Okay. Pedro, does it ensure that message is not lost? Yes. Fantastic question. Yes, there's a concept of quality of service, and there are different quality of service levels that you can set. But basically, yes, quality of service is a concept, is a feature, is a concept in enterprise messaging in general, or messaging in general, and it's a feature that's available in enterprise messaging. We'll see reference to quality of service when if I stop talking, finally get up to set up the webhook to start consuming those messages. Yes. So Christian, thank you for answering. Brilliant. This is what we want to see. So I'm going to set up my trial account. I'm just going to show you. We're going to do everything sort of in the terminal, because future is terminal. My trial account, I've got a Cloud Foundry environment right now. I've got dev space in the org. I've got no applications and no services. Now, just to show you, there is, just so you're not confused, there is in subscriptions down here somewhere, enterprise messaging, but we're not interested in that enterprise messaging subscription. That's more for the paid plan, which we're not interested in, of course, because we're developers trying to learn and embrace. Yes, so currently SEM is restricted to paid services, and fantastically timed there, Jodel. We've got this a trial option so that developers can play around using this. Okay, so there are some features available only at the moment in the paid plan, but those features will be coming to a new trial plan, coming soon, real soon now, as they say, trademarked. I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure whether it's going to be by the end of this year. Maybe it might be slightly, in first quarter 2021. I'm hoping it's going to be this year, but we'll see. But there's plenty of stuff to play around with before then. There's so much to learn. So basically, yeah, I'm just pointing out the enterprise messaging subscription. Do not want. We don't need that. Okay. So let's go into the spaces and just have a look, actually, at the final look at the GUI here, at the lovely Cloud Platform cockpit, and we have enterprise messaging as a service in the marketplace. Okay, so we can see here as well that for some reason I've got the default plan that's showing to me. I think it's because of my SAP ID. I'm not quite sure, but I think you may in your trial accounts only have the dev. In my other trial account, I can only see the dev plan. The dev plan does say deprecated in the description, but we can sort of, to all intents and purposes right now, we can still embrace it, we can still use it because it gives us the features that we want to learn about, and it's the features that will remain, right? So, given that, I'm going to switch to the terminal, because the future is terminal. I've even put in my terminal thing now, the future terminal. It's quite cool. I think it's cool anyway. So where are we? We're in this, oh yeah, here we go, live streams 2028, 2027. Okay, fine. I've got a few things that I've pre-prepared, but what we'll first do is just make sure I've connected to the right endpoint and with the right user. Yes, there we go. Okay, perfect. I'm going to look at in fact, my own version of the command that truncates the stuff. Let's look at the marketplace, okay, to make sure we can see that enterprise messaging service that's available and what plans are available. So when we get that output, in fact, we can see it already. I can see it already. It's up there, isn't it? Enterprise messaging, dev and default in my case. So in your case, dev. So let's go for that. Let's create, right? Let's create an instance of the enterprise messaging service. And in the documentation where it talks about the setup, create an enterprise messaging service instance, we need to specify some settings. So if you're doing it in the GUI, you get to the JSON bit and say, oh yeah, specify this JSON setting here. We'll do it sort of on the command line because we are hardcore, right? We're looking towards the future. So we need to specify the name in the parameters to the service instance. We need to specify the name of the enterprise messaging itself, okay? And we also need to specify a couple of options that we want to play with. We want to be able to access the management API, so we can actually, poke the queues and the subscriptions via an API, for example. And also we want the HTTP, as in the REST-based protocol, available to us to do some messaging, okay? So, some people might say, true enterprise messaging is AMQP or MQTT, which is sort of true, but there's nothing wrong with HTTP messaging, and that's what we're going to be playing with today, right? So we want to make sure we got the REST messaging available to us. So let's do that now. Let's say CF create service enterprise messaging. We'll call it EMDev, enterprise messaging dev. I'm tending to call my service instances like the name of the service, unless it's too long, EM in this case, and then the dev plan. So I'm going to use I need the plan, don't I? Dev and then EMDev. But then also we need to specify these things here, the EM name, the options, and so on. So I think people have been on this show before will know that I like JSON, but I don't like typing JSON. I like typing YAML. So I'm going to use the YAML reader to read and spit it out as JSON from the input. So I'm going to do that and say, what is it? EM name. Let's call it EMDev. Yeah, we call it EMDev, and then also the options. In fact, before I do that, let me just show you what this does. Okay, so if I say YQ read the YAML and spit it out as JSON from standard input, I can say options EM name EMDev. This is what's going to happen, right? So EMDev, and what is it? Options management true and messaging REST true, and then I close that stream. We get JSON. Okay, so I think that's a lot easier to type with all the white spaces, right? So we're going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to say let's go to the top here. There we go, that one there, and we'll say EM name. Oh, in fact, I'll just copy paste that now. There we go, EM name. Copy, paste that in there. Creating service instance, EMDev in org, blah blah blah. Okay, perfect. So CFT services. What have we got? We got the enterprise messaging dev plan. Create succeeded EMDev. Now, to do anything with, well, in fact, let's have a look. Let's have a look what we've got. Let's go to here. Let's go to our instances. In fact, let's go to our dev overview. Look at the service instances, and we will see. And this is, I think, we haven't seen this or looked at this very often. Let me make that a little bit bigger. Very often, but we get a, come on, tooltip, open dashboard. So let's open that dashboard. Sign in as me. And we have a really nice, simple administration dashboard for our enterprise messaging service. Okay, we can play around with this. We can see that, for example, right now, we've got no queues defined. And we've got no queue subscriptions defined. Remember, that's a queue subscription is basically a combination of a topic and a queue. Okay, in fact, you can see here, when you define one, you have to specify a queue name and the topic, right? Okay, but anyway, and we've also got, and we'll be coming to here hopefully shortly, we've also got the ability to define some webhook subscriptions. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So, how are we doing? Are we doing okay? Let me know. Is that font size okay? I think it is. I think it is. It's a beautiful font as well. I think I've changed it. Can't remember what it is. Anyway, in order to do things like create queues and also push messages onto queues, right? We need to be able to authenticate. Okay, just like with the workflow service we've been using, the business rule service, and any other service, that we've sort of, partaken of, we need to authenticate. We need authentication details to do that. And of course, this is all protected with OAuth 2. And we're going to be using client credentials. And therefore, we not only need a service instance, but we also need a service key. So let's create a service key and then have a look what's inside that service key, because I think it's quite interesting. Let's call the service key. Let's create a service key. CF create service key for EMDev SK1. Service key 1. Why not? Is that the right syntax? Seems to be. Okay. So now, service keys EMDev. We can see that the service key, hopefully, yes, SK1. Now, let's grab that service key. CF service key service key EMDev SK1 and have a look at it. Okay, so it's JSON. In fact, again, this really ugly part of the output of CF here, we need to get rid of that, and then we'll put it in a JSON file so we can look at it properly with JQ. So let's do CF and then just delete the first 2 lines. And then let's put it into key.json, just so we can have a look at it. There we go. So let's look at the key.json. So now we can see that we've got a management section, okay, in this service key, and we've got a messaging section. And these are 2 important sections, nodes within the service key that we need to pay attention to. The management section gives us OAuth 2, OA2 information on how to and where to go and get a token for doing management stuff with the API, right? So there's the URI. That's the endpoint for the management API calls. Okay, we'll come to that shortly. And then we've also got the messaging node. We've got management and messaging. Those are 2 topmost nodes. And then when we look at the messaging node, we can see, let's just make that just up there. Okay, we can see that it's an array of different things. It's an array where we've got a protocol AMQP. Okay, so that stuff there is all related to AMQP protocol based shenanigans with the enterprise messaging. In the same way, we've got a section here. I'll just highlight that, why not? Section here, we can see on line 40, we've got MQTT. So that's an MQTT specific section for OAuth 2 and an MQTT specific endpoint. And we can see there, WSS, that's not HTTP, obviously, because it doesn't say HTTP, it says WSS. So that tells us that that is this messaging protocol here, right? It's not an HTTP protocol. But then further down, right at the bottom, let's just go to the bottom there, quit. We can see the final stanza or the final meta stanza there, right? Which is our HTTP REST. It's a bit tautological. I don't know why HTTP REST, that's tautological. You know, REST is an architectural style that's implemented in HTTP. But anyway, it's called HTTP REST. And that's the one that we're interested in. And we can see here the URI, the endpoint is, you know, something that's familiar to us, HTTPS, of course, great. And we'll be using that, okay? And notice as well, interestingly, that the name that's been given to this particular API endpoint is PubSub, which sort of speaks to what we're going to be doing with it and what it enables us to do. Ooh, chat, Jodel, currently SEM is, okay, you said that, I've said that already, I've seen that already. Pedro, this EMS makes integration application a bit redundant. I think it complements it. I probably don't know enough about integration, as in CPI or PI. I think one of the things one of the differentiators for me is that PI, XI, CPI is all about integration from, you know, large messages, almost like, you know, why am I thinking EDI? But I mean, just think in terms of the sizes of the messages, in terms of what we're trying to accomplish with cloud platform integration with PI and so on. You know, it's almost like, again, I'm just thinking ETL. It's almost like what you want to do with some large lump of data coming from one system, maybe transform it, sending it to another system and everything. That for me is, perfect use case for CPI. That is not a use case for enterprise messaging. Enterprise messaging is, yes, it's asynchronous, just like CPI is mostly asynchronous. But if asynchronous, can be a sliding scale, this is more asynchronous. But super importantly, this is lightweight. The payloads that are happening, that are being sent around, are, or should be, in my book, the smallest payloads that could possibly work. We're not transferring data as such. Well, we are transferring small amounts of data, but that data represents events. Okay, it's lightweight. And then the receiving or consuming application, for example, will say, okay, well, this event, oh yeah, here's the payload. It's just a key. I'm going to use that key to go and get or do something with that. Okay, so that's the the complementary difference that I see. The sort of immediate one that comes to mind. So I hope that explains things. But yes, there are some similarities, as Jodel points out. Shall I eat this biscuit? I'm too scared to eat it. Oh. Okay, it's not as crumbly because I think it's a bit stale, which is maybe a good thing. So Jodel, yes, exactly. I think you were probably writing that at the same time I was saying that. Some more SEM is lightweight compared to PI. Yes, lightweight. I think that's the key. So anyway, we've got. Oh, that was a bit loud. Sorry. We've got now a service key. So now, why don't we create a queue using the credentials that we've got in the service key and using the REST API endpoint. So we've got here somewhere, I've got a link. REST APIs. Let me just share that link here as well. And basically, there are two groups from an API perspective, right? And again, like I was saying before, these APIs are the same whether we're on a trial plan or a dev plan or production plan. We're learning the fundamentals. We're learning it from the ground up, right? That's super important. So use REST APIs to send and receive messages. Not yet, DJ, not yet. Use REST APIs to manage queues and queue subscriptions. So if we have a look here in the messaging administration UI, we got no queues. So why don't we create a queue? I mean, we could create a queue with the UI, but how boring is that? So let's not do that. Let us have a look at the management APIs in this documentation, which is beautiful. How nice is that, right? Management APIs. So what we want to do is create or update a queue, okay? And so hub REST API, blah, blah, management message queues, queue, okay? Put. So this is also, in my book, a beautiful thing. It's using HTTP as the deity intended, as an application protocol. So we're using the appropriate method here, the appropriate verb, put, to create, to update or create a new queue. Okay, so creates or updates. It's a beautiful thing. Hey Fabiano, hello, and thank you for saying hello, and thank you for coming and joining and everything. That's awesome. We're just talking about queues. About to create a queue. So create or update a queue by the parameters specified in the request body. Now we don't want any parameters because I don't think there's any parameters that we require. I've not even clicked on that. What's that? Access type, max delivered, blah blah blah. They all seem a little bit too like whoa. No. I just want to create a queue. Okay, let's do things simple. So I've got, because I know you didn't want to see me typing all that much, I've got a couple of things here. I've been playing around. I was playing around with this last night. I'm still trying to, find my feeling in terms. That's great. When I look at when I look at my watch to see how much time I've got left, it's like, oh, what? Really? I've only got 10 minutes left, but I've got 25 minutes left. Brilliant. DJ, don't waste the time back talking about the time. I'm still trying to find my feet in terms of, writing more reusable bash scripts. By the way, I'm choosing bash over any more modern shells because bash is available everywhere. I mean, it's like bash is almost like the VI of shells, right? It's everywhere. So it's super important to me in my brain to learn and embrace bash. But anyway, it's a really simple script. That's it. In fact, if I go down to the bottom there, yes, it's 42 lines. How beautiful. Douglas Adams, thank you very much. 42 lines, okay? And we've got here, you need to specify instance name. So let's specify emdev as the instance name. Service key 1 is a service key. What should we create? Hands on SAP dev as the queue name. Is that okay? Hands on. Let's call it hands on. Hands on. The output is for the curl commands. So, do we want a verbose output from curl, or do we want a silent output from curl? So we're going to be using this to set up a queue, using this to make an API call. As you can see at the bottom here, Hub REST API V1 management messaging queues. Okay, and up here as well, Hub REST API V1 management messaging queues queue. Okay, which is exactly this thing here. Okay, so what I'm doing here, and again, just let me know if you want to dig into this more. Maybe this is more like a Wednesday afternoon live stream. But I've got some utils as well. So in fact, if I have a look at dot files, scripts, utils, I'll just show you what's in there. I've got a log function, and I've got a URL encoding function, which I'm not using, and a URL decode. So those are basic utils. So I'm using the log function, which is there, okay? But I've also got some local utils. If I show you the local utils, in fact, let's just local utils. Let's open it. What am I doing? What am I doing? There. Okay. Sorry, slight finger problem there. I've got my local utils as well, where I've just defined some functions. Get val, which is using JQ, the jQuery parser and reader to grab a value from another stanza. And I've also encapsulated. I think I'm happy now with this function that you can pass in a stanza, a little bit like, well, this whole thing, right? You can pass in a stanza like that contains a client ID, a client secret, a grant type, and a token endpoint, right? Pass in. I'm using the word stanza. Obviously, it's from poetry, but I quite like the fact that it describes in my brain succinctly a standalone chunk of stuff. Pass in something that looks like this, and then what it does is it parses out things using get val, and then just makes a grant type client credentials, in this case, call to go and get an access token. Okay, so the token endpoint is this thing here. Okay, so this is not the endpoint, not the management endpoint. Sorry, not the messaging endpoint, but the token endpoint to go and get a token. Look, you see it says at the end here, OAuth token. Okay, so that is what we're doing here. So I've got a a little function saying get token. You just pass it a stanza with the client ID, client secret, grant type, and token endpoint, and it'll give you back an access token, having made a call, having made an OAuth 2 client credentials call. So I've encapsulated that into there. I thought, is there anything else in there? Oh, get service key. Yeah, this is basically go and get me the key. We saw it. We did this on the command line, didn't we? This is basically to return the details of the service key for the given instance and the given service key name. So instance emdev and service key sk1. Okay, and it uses this sort of sed to clean up the horrible output from CF. So there we go. We got that. And let's just let's quit out of that. So all we're going to do is we're going to get a service key. Okay. In fact, let's just do this one thing at a time. So echo sk and then exit. So all this is doing now is if we say q set, okay, there's the service key. That's the whole service key. And in fact, if we pass that into JQ and just sort of prettify it, that's the thing that we've been seeing, right? So if we continue, let's get rid of those lines here. Continue. All we're doing now is we're going to grab the values from that service key. We're going to grab the management bit for the management API. We're going to get the management URI, the endpoint to make API calls, i.e. calls like this. Going to go and get the OAuth information, the stanza, and then pass it to the get token to get a token. So let's just run that bit so we can see what's happening. Okay, q set, and we don't need to JQ now. Oh, there's an airplane going. That's a strange sound. It's an unusual sound. I've not been used to that. An airplane going overhead. So there is a token. Okay, so let's go back in again and have a look. Let's go down to there and get rid of that. Oops. More haste, less speed, DJ. More haste, less speed. So once we've got the token, we can make some calls. We can make some API calls to create a queue. There. Put, request, put. And then I also list the queues. Okay. Get. Okay. If we look further down somewhere, get queues, or further up somewhere, get queues. Get your settings and information for all queues. So let's run that. We can now know roughly what this is doing. Queue set. In the meantime, let's go across to here. Are we still... let's cancel out of here. Look at the queues. We can turn on like the auto update. Nothing up my sleeve. Nothing in the queues. Queue set. Let's see what happens. Great. Okay. Creating or updating queue. Hands on. There we go. That's cool. And now over here, come on, update, update, update. Please, please give us a queue. Give us a queue. Update, update. How often is this? How frequent is this update thing? Maybe I'll just update the tab if it doesn't update in a minute after I've drunk this coffee. Oh, I can finish my biscuit, can't I? What? It's probably logged me out. There we go. Hands on. That's the queue. Cool. We've got no messages in the queue. So why don't we now push some messages, right? So, instance name, emdev, service name, service key name sk1, wasn't it? And then queue name, what do we call it? Hands on. And we're going to send 5. Let's call it, I don't know, let's call it, how about 15 messages? Oh, yes, 15 messages. Same thing, okay? Same sort of setup, bringing in the general utilities. I'm just using the log function from the utils. But from the local utils, which we just had a look at, I'm using the get service key, I'm using the get val and get token again, right? So we're getting the service key, same procedure, but this time we want to make a messaging call, not a management call. So we need the messaging stanza from the service key. If we have a look here, there's the service key. And remember, the management, that bit there, only has a single entry. Okay, so I was just grabbing the 0th one, as in that one. But the messaging has multiple entries, and we've got to find the one where the protocol is set to HTTP REST, or in fact where the broker is set to SAP REST MGW, okay, which is I think what I'm using as the filter. So that's why we've got a slightly different way of grabbing that particular chunk from the messaging section, select broker type equals SAP REST MGW. Okay, the same. Then we've got the same. The URI, the endpoint to make the calls, is the URI in the HTTP REST thing. Get the auth information, go and get the token, and then we've got everything we need to do a really comfortable bang, 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 sending messages. So we'll look at the bottom here. We've got the messaging REST API. There it is. So that is different. If we have a look here, let's go back. We're not now using REST APIs to manage queues. We're now going to go into, we're going to using REST APIs to send and receive messages. Okay, you can access the messaging APIs here. And the first one we're presented with, post messaging REST v1 queues, queue name, messages. We can post publish messages to a queue. And that's what we want, messaging REST v1 queues. And then a queue name and then messages. And that is what we've got here. And who was it was asking about quality of service? Oh, Pedro, yes, Pedro. So we're not going to get into quality of service in detail today, but here's a header that's actually required, but this is also this is the quality of service header. 0 is I don't really care that much, and 1 is I want an acknowledgement, I want it to be proper. So that's what we're talking about here. So let's just do it. Let's just see what happens. And in fact, I wonder if I yeah, that'll do. Let's just do that and move over to there, go to the administration. We see them. Oh, we need to turn on this again. That needs to be default, I think, and see if the number of messages goes up. Okay, so let's quit out of here. Queue set. Oh, not queue set. We don't run queue set. We want to run queue push, don't we? Sending 15 messages. I'm also sleeping in between each. I don't want to hammer the service, so I'm just sleeping 1 second each time. That's why it's going nice and gently. We've got 1 message in the queue. 6 messages in the queue. There we go. Okay, so we got 11 is going up. It should be 15 eventually. Come on, update it. 15. There we go. Thank you very much indeed. Can we see that, by the way? Is that big enough? So up that a little bit and make that smaller. Now, those messages are going to sit in the queue. Well, not forever, but forever. So why don't we now connect a consumer to that queue to consume those messages? And the messages that we sent, I mean, look at the messages here. All I'm sending is some JSON payload, which is, well, not necessarily for enterprise messaging in general, but most common when we're talking about messaging. We send JSON as a payload. And in fact, what we're going to be using is a webhook to connect to this queue and consume and drain those messages off. And I think it's fair to say that with webhooks specifically, the convention is to use JSON. I think it's probably JSON everywhere. So let's do that. By the way, I've also noticed that it's 8:48, so we've got 12 minutes. But given now we've got this slightly new format with hands-on SAP Dev, I do want to push through to the end. So we might go over by 5 or 10 minutes maximum over the hour. So I'll keep going. So it's like a nice succinct, well, not nice necessarily, but a succinct episode. So we'll get to the end by consuming this stuff. Okay, so one of the things we can do to consume these messages is let's make that full screen again. Where was it? Not in development. Using enterprise messaging. Manage webhooks. Put comment away. There we go. So you can use a webhook to subscribe to a queue. This allows the service to push messages received on the queue to the webhook. Now, one of our philosophies is, of course, simplest thing that could possibly work. And webhooks, very simple to build. So let's build a webhook, right, and connect it. So I've already got the basics of a webhook, because again, by the way, please let me know in the chat right now if you fancy it, or later have a think about it and put it in the comments. would you prefer generally to have less pre-written code to paste in and more me typing it and getting it wrong and fixing it? Or would you prefer what we're doing now, which is, is this, what's the right, I never know what's the right level of hacking? Okay, because there's a lot to get through, but, I don't want to rush it. But anyway, let's now say, if what we want to do is create a webhook. And the easiest way to create a webhook for me is to write something in JavaScript using Express. And I've already got, well, in fact, let's create, what have we got here? Local utils, key. We don't need a key anymore anyway. Key.json, let's get rid of that. Make dear webhook. And let's go into that. And also, let's initialize it as a Node.js project. Okay, so we've got that, and in our package.json, we need to have it. Well, not need. Let's just use the standard convention and have a start script, because of course that is super useful when we push it to the cloud, because that's what the cloud runner will look for to start by default to start an application. So let's do that now. So Tim, we learned from errors, so typing in is good. Okay, thank you very much. Light hands on hacking that you do. Typing. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so let's do it like that then. In fact, I've just got, well, we'll do a little bit of typing, I think, here, but that's good. But thank you for the feedback. I can do that next time as well. Keep going. Brilliant. Remind me as well. Let's store. There we go. So this is like the skeleton. Yeah. Okay. So all I'm doing is I'm bringing in a couple of node modules. Express, which is the de facto, the go-to web server library, and we've also got this super useful body parser. Now, in fact, npm body parser. Basically, what this does is a piece of middleware, Express middleware that will basically look at the incoming request and parse the body for you and like do sensible things with it. Okay, so it's really, really convenient. And what it does for us here is it'll present the body as JSON. Okay, because we're telling it to look out for JSON and parse it as JSON and present it as JSON, which is really cool. Okay, Fabiano, in this way is great, and please share with us these powerful scripts. Yes, okay, thank you for. Yes, I was wondering about that, whether you would like these scripts or not. I need to figure out the best way of sharing these, maybe in a repo on SAP samples or something. Right, bear with me. I'm away next week, but if these scripts were useful, yes, I'd love to share them. So I guess what we need to do is, well, if we run this now, node or npm start. Okay. Oh yeah, of course, yeah. We haven't got the module, so npm install express and body parser. So it's install those modules first of all. Let's run it. Let's try it again. npm start. We got a server running. It's not going to do anything for us, I don't think, because, in fact, I do that again. If I go to here and go to localhost 8080, okay, it's not going to respond because we haven't got anything in there that is going to respond. So we need to add. We need to add some sort of handlers, okay? And this is like super fundamental. Works in many, it's just a mod. It's a standard model. So it's always app.get. I mean, in Express you can sort of set a handler with app.get and say when a get request comes in for the following path / in this case run this function, and the function is given. We need to expect a request and also a response object that we can, if you've written in ABAP on the ABAP stack, if you've written HTTP services, It's exactly the same paradigm. You know, you get given, here you are, we get given a server object, and out of the server object you can grab the request object, so you can look at the request, and you get access to the response object, so you can start filling the response. You do your stuff, and then you let go, and then the infrastructure, the ICF infrastructure, sends a response back. Exactly the same sort of thing here. So all we'll do here is we'll say res dot, what should we have? It's res dot, we'll just send, hey, this is webhook, send a post. That'll do. And that's it. So if we run that now, yes, actually what we could do is, where are we going? CD webhook, list index, entr. I'm just using that. I'm just experimenting with this actually. Node npm start. Oh no, node index.js. Is that working? Oh well, it doesn't matter. No npm start. So now if we refresh that, of course we get the response. But we want to, a webhook is something that receives a post request. Okay, we can't do a get request because it might have a side effect. So philosophically, fundamentally, you don't want to use a get, you want to use a post. So let's also specify a handler for a post. Okay, you are not typing in this way, typing in until we get a hold of it. Thank you, Kishore. Yes, I'm totally with you there, Kishore. I like typing stuff in until, it's like just get a feeling. We all get a feeling together, don't we? So Mark, I am not a friend of terminal. Instead of 3 clicks in the cloud cockpit, we need to do 10 minutes of typing. That's fighting talk, Mark. Yes, it's true. I mean, if you want to use a cockpit, then of course use a cockpit. I like the terminal because it's a terminal, and I'm very old, but also because I just get a better feeling for what's going on underneath. That when you click something in the cockpit, which is great and super convenient, I'm not sure what's going on, so I like to know what's going on. So now we're going to have an app.post. And we'll also, we'll receive request response. So basically this is handling any post requests going to the root path. Okay. All we want to do really is, well, in fact, we want to log out what we get. This is going to be the payload of the message that the webhook receives. All right. So we want console.log. What should we have? Why don't we have one of these? I'm really into these sort of old-fashioned things now. Console.log and then the request.body. Okay, so that's the thing that's going to be hopefully parsed into JSON for us by the body parser, and then we'll say res dot. What should we have? We'll just send a status of 200, and then finish. Okay, so that's that. That should be the same. Refresh that, refresh that, refresh that. Now, if we say here curl -d name DJ, send that to localhost 8080 / hopefully. There we go. We get, I don't know why. Okay, wait a minute. I think I needed to put that there. Not sure why we're getting. Why are we not getting the? Yes. Maybe it's because I'm a Londoner. jcurl. Am I not? Is it because I'm not sending the right? There we go. Yes. That's quite cool. The futurist terminal, Jodel. The futurist terminal. As I've got it up here as well, which is I quite like that. So yeah, the body parser was sort of not willing to parse that JSON as JSON because the content type wasn't telling it was JSON. In fact, I think the default content type that curl sends, if I'm right, is the XWWW form URL encoded. Okay, so the body parser is like, looks like JSON, but the content type is telling me it's not JSON, so I'm not going to parse it as JSON, so there's no JSON. So now we tell in the header, this is JSON, and so the body parser can do its job. Cool. Okay, so you know what? Because it's 9 o'clock, and I'm like, yes, we'll go over the hour. I'm feeling good. Okay, so have I got any meetings after this? No. Okay, that's cool. So 12 minutes. It's 10 already. Need to skip it. Yes, Mark. I know. Sorry, Mark. Hopefully you'll catch the rest of this in the replay. Have a good meeting. Have a good daily, and have a great weekend as well, Mark. See you soon. Right. So we've got that. So we've got a webhook now. Why don't we deploy that webhook to the cloud? Let's get rid of that. That'll do, won't it? That webhook will do. We've got something that we can see messages that are received. And a webhook is basically an endpoint, an HTTP endpoint that is waiting to receive post requests. And we're using that console log statement to say, well, we got this, we got this, we got this. Okay, Christian, gotta go. Looking forward to the next session. Cheers, guys, and have a nice weekend. Have a nice weekend as well, to you, Christian. Thank you for joining as well. I'll carry on. I mean, another 10 minutes. That's it. Yeah, I think that's it. What we're doing? What am I doing? Oh yes. So CFT. Have we got any apps? We got no apps. Okay. We got services there, of course. That's our service instance, of course. So let's deploy this thing as an app. Okay. I'm going to do the simplest thing that could possibly work. Johan, this is a deep dive session, not a starter session. Oh, now. Thank you for that feedback. So is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? That's taking me slightly aback. I guess what I'm intending at least is that it's scratching the surface of enterprise messaging by doing, looking at only simple things in enterprise messaging. We're looking at simple things in a deep way, but what I didn't want to do is like skate over all the different things of enterprise messaging, because then I wouldn't learn anything and you wouldn't learn anything. So the terminal is needed to. Oh, I see. Okay, yes. So yes, it's a deep dive. Johan, thank you. Yes, now I understand what you mean. So this is a deep dive session, not a starter session. So a terminal is needed to understand. Totally agree with you, Johan. There. Thank you for that. Thank you for the confirmation. Yes, exactly. We see things better in the terminal. Yes, Johan. You've made my day. Thank you. So we've got, is it still there? We've got the queues. We don't need that anymore. We've got the queue, and there's still 15 messages waiting there going, nobody's consuming me yet, nobody's consuming me. But what we want to do is we want to create a webhook subscription here, right? And we'll use the UI for this. We'll create a subscription name, pointing to that queue. Remember those diagrams we saw right at the start, the topics and queues and everything, right? I like to use ngrok to test locally before pushing the app. Ooh, should we do that? Let me know if you fancy doing that. Let's do that. I like ngrok as well. Samuele? I think we should do that. So again, by the way, to Pedro as well, I think. Was it Pedro that asked the question? Yes, so here again is this quality of service thing. Again, we're not going to dig into this quality of service thing. 0 or 1. Not particularly descriptive, but there we go. 0 or 1. And there's the webhook URL. So basically what we can do with this is attach a webhook URL, an endpoint, right, to a queue. Right? So we're going to, that's what we want to be able to do. Okay. So yeah, why do we do that actually? So I think I've got ngrok installed. Yes. So why don't we say what's in this session here? We don't need that anymore. No. Let's get rid of that as well. So if I run node or npm start 8080 and then ngrok HTTP 8080. Right. So we got an ngrok thing, right? I think that's right, isn't it? What did I do there? Yeah, 8080. Okay. So we've established a connection. Let's grab this. Why don't we grab this? first of all. Copy that. And in fact, let's just make sure we can see it. Cool. That's going through the interwebs. Yeah, well, let's do that now. So let's call it the subscription name is going to be ngrok based, right? Let's call it ngrok. Ngrok. Quality of service 0. Let's leave. Let's not even get into the quality of service. Webhook URL. So it's going to be that, and of course, you know, the slash as the path. Again, I don't want to get into handshaking because basically I don't really know much about it anyway. So we'll say yes. Well, basically, enterprise messaging supports the sort of validation of an endpoint. Say, you know, we need to handshake before I'm going to send you anything. Okay, dear webhook. But we're saying here that particular endpoint, that's exempt from any handshake. Okay, that's exempt from any sort of pre-validation. So let's just go. Create the webhook now. Let me just, I've got a feeling that as soon as we press create, it might start to push all those messages, those 15 messages that are waiting to the webhook. Let's try it. Great. If it doesn't, it's my fault. Oh, there we go. 15. Samuela, what a brilliant suggestion. So we've tested our webhook. We've hooked up a local node app running on my PC here through ngrok to Cloud Platform, my trial account here, and it's drained those messages. Beautiful. And there is the data. Remember that if we have a look at the queue push, the messages that we were sending were exactly, you know, a bit of JSON, data, and then number, and then the, you know, the nth message, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. So that's why we're getting data number. Amazing, Samuele. What a brilliant suggestion. Okay, so now we know it's working. Let's push it to the cloud for real. So let's go back here and kill that. So we've not got the ngrok anymore. I guess let's delete this one. Ngrok. But also, we've got no more messages in the queue, right? So let's add some more messages. Let's kill that as well, right? So let's say Q. Oh, it's here, isn't it? Q. Let's open it. This one here. Q push. Let's put 15 more messages on. Oh, why is consumption out of order? I didn't notice that. What was that? What did we see there? 1, 2. Basically, I don't think, in terms of messages, there's a guarantee in terms of order, because these are stateless, these are independent. Let's look into that next time. That's a well spotted somewhere there. Well spotted. 1, 2, 5, 6, 3. Interesting. Yes. So let's check that out next time. Remind me next time. Put it in the comments. Put it in the comments to the chat. Put it in the comments to the video. So that, where are we? Okay, fine. So we've got now, hopefully, another 15 messages. In fact, let's have some more. Let's do it again. Let's have 30 altogether. So, and while we're doing that, let's go back here, and I think we're ready to push. Let's cf push. Let's give it a random. Let's not even create a manifest file. What's the simplest thing? Can we do that? Can we get away with just doing that? Webhook shiny mongoose in Kentucky. Okay, that'll do. Fine. So what's going on here? We've got 15, another 15. So that should be, while we're waiting, there we go, 30 messages. So let's go and now create a new webhook subscription. Let's create it. Let's call it, I don't know, let's call it webhook. That's the name of the app. That's with same queue, the hands-on queue. I don't think, it'll show us the queues. We've already got one queue. The webhook URL is going to be the URL of the route to the app. It's going to be exempt as well because I don't want to mess around with that. So let's wait until that's been deployed. Oh, it's deployed. There we go. Webhook shiny mongoose. In fact, if we say curl and then let's go up here. Where are we? Sorry. Oh, come on, DJ. I'm still getting used to this. There we go. There. There we go. So we've now got our deployed to the cloud app responding. We did a get to the slash and it's responded by saying, hey, this is a webhook, send a post. In fact, let's do that in the browser as well. I know Mark's not here, but he would like this, I'm sure. This is a webhook. Okay, so now this is SAP Cloud Platform serving our app to us. There we go. So that should now work as well.